When trust shatters, the pain can feel unbearable. Imagine the person you love most betraying you, twice, while carrying your child. This is the story of my relationship with a woman I adored, who not only cheated on me, but left me questioning everything I believed about love, loyalty, and forgiveness. From the moment we met, I felt like I had found something rare, a connection that stood out from anything I'd experienced before. At 32, she carried a maturity and confidence that felt grounding, while I, at 27, admired her independence and drive. For over 3.5 years, we built a life together, one that felt steady and full of potential. Our age difference wasn't a challenge, but a dynamic that seemed to complement us, her wisdom guiding me and my energy bringing something fresh to her world. Over time, my love for her grew deeper, evolving from infatuation to a sense of unwavering commitment. I wasn't just her boyfriend, I was ready to be her partner in every sense. I wanted to build a future together, one that included selling my investment properties to buy a home where we could start a family. This wasn't just a relationship, it was the foundation of the life I envisioned for us. But even in the most perfect relationships, doubts can creep in like shadows at dusk. Her recent behaviors started to feel off. A missed call here, a vague explanation there, and a growing feeling in my gut that something wasn't right. It was unlike me to question her trust. Our relationship had always been built on honesty, or so I thought. Despite these nagging feelings, I pushed them aside, convincing myself it was just paranoia. After all, love is about trust, and I trusted her completely. Or at least I wanted to. It wasn't until one fateful night, when she came home from a supposed outing with a friend, that the cracks in my perfect picture of us began to show. A subtle scent clung to her, familiar yet foreign, the kind you'd associate with an older man. It was enough to plant the first seeds of doubt, seeds that would grow into something I could no longer ignore. This is where it all began. A love so strong it made me a better person, but a love that was about to be tested in ways I never imagined. It started innocently enough, or so I thought. Late one November evening in 2019, she came home from what she said was a night out with a friend. I was already winding down, ready to head to bed, but when she walked through the door, something felt off. She greeted me with the same smile I'd seen 1,000 times before, but there was a tension beneath it, a stiffness that didn't feel like her. As I leaned in to kiss her goodnight, she hesitated, pulling back slightly and muttering something about having garlic breath. It was such a small thing, easy to brush off, but in that moment, something else caught my attention, a scent. It wasn't hers, and it wasn't mine. It was subtle but unmistakable, a cologne that carried a weight of maturity, like something an older man would wear. I didn't say anything at first. I told myself I was imagining things, that I was overthinking, but the thought lingered in my mind, gnawing at me. A few days later, as we shared a few drinks on a Friday night, I couldn't help myself. The alcohol loosened my tongue, and I brought it up casually, trying to gauge her reaction. "You know," I teased, "the other night you smelled like someone else's cologne. Care to explain?" I said it with a smirk, hoping I was wrong, hoping she'd laugh it off. But she didn't laugh. She froze for a second, her eyes shifting just enough for me to notice. She tried to brush it off, saying I was being silly, but I could see something was weighing on her. The evening went on, and I kept pressing, not accusing, just poking, prodding, trying to figure out if my gut feeling had any merit. And then it happened. She broke. Her eyes welled up and her voice cracked as she admitted the truth. She had been seeing someone else. My heart sank as she explained it was their first date, and she swore nothing physical had happened. She told me there were reasons, that it wasn't about me, but about something deeper inside her. I sat there stunned, barely able to process her words. She explained how losing her father to suicide when she was just 3 years old had left a void she'd been trying to fill her whole life. She said this older man represented something she couldn't explain, a father figure she never had. She even admitted she had cheated on a previous partner with an older man, as if it was some pattern she couldn't escape. And then came the blow that truly stung. She said I needed to be more dominant, to take control of life's direction and our relationship. This, despite the fact that I had been planning our future together, even preparing to sell my properties so we could start a family. She promised she was seeing a psychologist to work through her issues, and she begged me to understand, to forgive her. Sitting there, torn between my love for her and the betrayal, I felt a mix of anger, heartbreak, and helplessness. The trust we had built over 3.5 years was suddenly shattered, and I didn't know if it could ever be repaired. After the shocking revelation, I was left with a choice I never thought I'd have to make. Should I walk away from the woman I loved so deeply, or should I try to forgive and rebuild what had been broken? The days that followed were some of the most emotionally exhausting of my life. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't think clearly. My mind replayed her confession over and over, dissecting every word, every excuse, every promise. I decided I needed space to process everything. Work gave me an excuse to leave town for a few days, and I used that time to clear my head. I talked to friends, people I trusted, and asked for their advice. Some told me to leave immediately, saying that betrayal this deep was a line you don't cross twice. Others told me to follow my heart, to focus on the love we shared and see if it could survive this storm. Despite the hurt, my heart kept pulling me back to her. I couldn't just throw away everything we had built. She had been my partner in life, my rock, the person who made me laugh when the world felt heavy. She had supported me in ways no one else had, and I wanted to believe that this mistake didn't define her. When I returned home, we sat down and talked, really talked. She apologized again, this time with tears streaming down her face. She promised me it would never happen again, and she said she was committed to working through her issues with her psychologist. I could see the pain in her eyes, and as much as I hated what she did, I hated seeing her suffer just as much. So, I made the hardest decision of my life. I chose to forgive her. I chose to believe that love could be stronger than betrayal, that we could rebuild what was broken. It wasn't an easy decision, and it wasn't one I took lightly, but I truly believed in us. In the weeks that followed, we worked hard to repair the damage. We spent the Christmas holidays together, reconnecting in ways we hadn't in years. We talked about our future, about the family we wanted to start, the home we dreamed of building together, and the life we could share if we could get past this. For a while, it felt like we had turned a corner. Our love felt stronger, more intentional, and more real. I started to believe that we had come out of this ordeal not only intact, but better for it. Forgiveness, I thought, had given us a second chance. I let myself hope again, trusting that this was the fresh start we needed. Just as I started to believe we had moved past the worst, something shifted. It wasn't obvious at first, just little things that felt out of place. She seemed distracted during our conversations. Her phone was always within arm's reach, and there was a subtle distance growing between us. The gut feeling I had ignored before returned, stronger this time, nagging at the back of my mind. I didn't want to go through her phone. I had never done it before the first incident, and even then, I hated myself for it. Trust was supposed to be the foundation of a relationship, and I had promised myself I would never be that person. But something about her recent behavior felt all too familiar, and the unease became impossible to ignore. So one evening, while she was in the shower, I did it. My hands trembled as I picked up her phone, half hoping, half dreading what I might find. It only took seconds. There it was, staring back at me in cold, undeniable truth. Messages to him, the same man. Messages filled with words that cut deeper than any knife. Words meant for someone else. Words I thought were reserved for me. My heart raced as I scrolled further. They weren't just texting, they were sexting. Explicit messages exchanged late into the night. My stomach churned as I read about their plans to meet, about the moments they had shared while I was away, working to provide for a future I thought we were building together. I felt a surge of anger, but also an overwhelming sadness. How could she do this to me again? Hadn't we worked through this? Hadn't she promised to change? My mind raced, searching for answers that didn't exist. When she came out of the shower, I confronted her immediately. I couldn't hold it in. The words came tumbling out, my voice shaking with a mix of fury and heartbreak. At first, she tried to deny it, but the evidence was right there in front of us. Finally, she broke down and admitted everything. She confessed that they had not only been in contact, but had also met up again. This time, It wasn't just messages or calls. They had been physical, and she had slept with him while she was 6 weeks pregnant. The betrayal hit me like a freight train. She was carrying our child, and yet she had still chosen to be with him. It was as if everything we had been working toward, everything I had forgiven her for, meant nothing. She offered the same excuses as before: the father figure issues, the need for dominance, the struggle she was trying to work through. But this time, her words felt hollow. The trust I had painstakingly rebuilt was gone in an instant, shattered beyond recognition. In that moment, I realized I couldn't keep doing this to myself. I had given her my love, my forgiveness, and my trust. I had fought for this relationship, believing in the good I saw in her, but now I had nothing left to give. As she confessed everything, my mind was in a whirlwind. I felt a rush of emotions: anger, betrayal, and an overwhelming sense of disbelief. How could she do this to me again, especially now, when I was on the brink of starting a family with her? The weight of her deceit was crushing, and it was hard to see beyond the pain. How could I trust her now? How could I trust anyone ever again? The excuses she offered felt weak, insufficient. She talked about her father's suicide, about her longing for a father figure, about feeling unfulfilled and needing someone to take control in the relationship. She said I should have been more assertive, more demanding, to keep her satisfied. But how could that justify sleeping with another man, especially while pregnant with my child? I had been willing to overlook the first betrayal, to forgive and move forward, believing that love could conquer all. But now, there was no escaping the truth. This wasn't just a lapse in judgment, it was a calculated betrayal. She had not only hurt me, but jeopardized our future together. And this time, the reasons she gave felt like empty words, excuses designed to absolve herself rather than take responsibility for her actions. My mind raced, grappling with the reality of our situation. The love I felt for her was real, undeniable, but it was no longer enough to hold us together. This betrayal went beyond mere infidelity. It was a betrayal of trust, of the promises we had made to each other, and the future we had planned. I felt like I was losing everything: my love, my sense of security, and the dream of a family. I knew what I had to do. The pain was excruciating, but I had to be strong. I had to protect myself and my unborn child from the damage of her actions. I couldn't keep forgiving her for the same mistakes over and over again. The anger and sadness that had been bubbling inside me for months finally bubbled over into clarity. This wasn't about her anymore. It was about me. I told her I couldn't do this anymore. I couldn't be with someone who didn't value our relationship, who didn't respect me enough to stay faithful. The pain was palpable, but I had to be strong. Walking away from someone you love is never easy, especially when it means leaving behind dreams of a future together. But I knew deep down it was the right decision, maybe the only decision. I felt a mix of relief and sadness as I told her it was over. The relationship that had once been so full of promise had become a toxic cycle of betrayal and heartbreak. And now, with the truth laid bare, I had to start over. I would move on, stronger and wiser. I knew I would hurt for a while, but in time, the pain would fade. I had to believe that the right person was out there for me, someone who would honor my love and respect me enough to stay faithful. As I walked away from her, I felt an overwhelming sense of loss. The relationship that once seemed like a sure thing, a foundation for a future, had crumbled before my eyes. It was a sharp, painful reality that I had to confront. I was losing not only the love of my life, but also the dream of a family I had longed for. The emptiness inside me felt vast and bottomless, as if I'd lost a part of myself that I could never get back. But in that moment, amidst the agony, I realized something crucial. This wasn't just about the end of a relationship. It was about the end of a painful cycle. I had been clinging to hope for far too long, hoping that things would change, that she would change. I had allowed myself to be hurt repeatedly, and that was no longer an option. The pain was raw, and the memories of her betrayal were fresh, but I understood that I had to let go for the sake of my own well-being. Walking away wasn't easy. I cried more than I ever have, for the love I lost, for the future that would never be, and for the man I thought I could be with her. The betrayal felt like a heavy weight around my neck, dragging me down into the abyss of despair. But with each tear that fell, I felt a flicker of strength within me, a determination to rise above the heartbreak and emerge from this ordeal as a stronger person. I began to focus on healing. I threw myself into work, into my hobbies, into anything that could take my mind off the pain. It was hard, every moment a battle against the memories that haunted me. But slowly, I started to rebuild my life. I sought out the company of friends who supported me, who listened without judgment, who shared stories of their own struggles and triumphs. I needed to hear that life could go on, that there was light at the end of the tunnel. In the quiet moments, I allowed myself to feel the pain, to mourn the loss of the relationship. I let the tears flow freely, acknowledging the hurt and the betrayal without trying to hide it. I realized that this pain was a part of healing, a necessary step in moving forward. Slowly but surely, I began to pick up the pieces of my shattered heart. I forgave myself for staying in a toxic relationship for too long, for ignoring the red flags, for believing in a love that wasn't real. I forgave her too, not because she deserved it, but because I needed to release the anger and resentment that were poisoning me from within. As time passed, I started to see the silver linings. This experience forced me to confront my own fears and insecurities, to learn what I truly wanted in a partner and a relationship. I understood now that love wasn't about accepting someone's flaws and mistakes. It was about choosing someone who cherished and respected me. I vowed never to settle again, to never compromise my worth for the sake of love. I knew I would carry the scars of this relationship for a long time, but they would also be a part of my strength, a testament to my ability to rise above pain and find hope. I couldn't go back to what we had, but I could move forward with my head held high, ready to embrace whatever life had in store for me. I believed that there was someone out there who would honor my love, who would respect me, and who would be everything I needed. This was the end of one chapter, but the beginning of another, a chapter where I would reclaim my power, find my peace, and welcome a love that was healthy, honest, and true.